Alright, here we go. After Party Duel. Number 2.
Wow.
Whoa.
What was that you said?
Dose.
Yeah. I said it in my French accent.
Ducks. I believe it's pronounced
Ducks.
Ducks. Yeah.
Well, we're only going to talk about a couple episodes here.
Just a few.
Yeah, only a few.
Just a few. Let me get a drink before I go down the list here. We're going to talk about episode 7, Men. M.I.I.N. Episode 8, The Department of Magical Visibility. Episode 9, A Friend of Lonnie's. Episode 10, Hands Wide Open, Mouth Sewn Shut. Oh, this is bringing back so many memories. Episode 11, Head Fruit.
Like an apple.
12, Always Lots of Stuff to Shovel. 13, The Invitation. 14, Our Dinner with Zalmo and or Zelmo, depending on how you say it.
Emily's shaking her head.
And 15, Additional Incentives. Quite a bit to chew on there for an after party.
Yeah, that's a large number of episodes.
So who wants to take a first bite?
But hey, our best 9 yet.
As always.
Those are the best 3 sets of 3.
Well, yeah, a lot happened.
Elena was saying we get basically a combat and an after party, no matter how many episodes we talk about at the after party. It is funny though. I think before we, it's funny because before last after party, I think we had just ended with you getting a bunch of magic items, and the same thing here at the very end of 15. You got a bunch of magic items.
You know what's really cool? Pretty soon, we're not going to be able to use those magic items at all because we'll be...
Yeah. If things go the way Zelma wants.
Have we used any of the magic items we got in the last after party, at the end of the last
Oh,
after
we
party?
don't tend to use magic items very often. We just acquire them.
Kylea did use her ward once.
Yeah, they're more of an annoyance to figure out where to store than they are really a useful item.
I do have in my opinion, improved system of keeping track of my magical items compared to our last campaign. So I may end up using them.
Paper and pencil?
No, not paper and pencil. I've gone digital, John.
Oh my god, fancy.
Yeah.
How, pray tell, are you using your digital capabilities to make this so much better than last time?
It's a Microsoft Word document. It's pretty advanced.
With lots of other information in it that now we have to dig through. Fine.
Wow, welcome to the 21st century, William. It's good to be here.
I will say that, like, when I was in university, not everyone had laptops with them. Like, a lot of people still took paper notes. So we are of that
was a long time ago.
Generation. Yeah, 18 years ago. Frick. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it like legit a generation ago.
Yeah.
It's long enough ago where the people going into post-secondary now will probably have some type of electronic device in which to take their notes, right? Like,
No, yeah, every lecture hall is just laptops now.
No, they don't take notes. They just ask ChatGPT to do their work for them.
I couldn't bring my laptop to lecture because the battery only lasted like an hour. So, you know, there's no plugs anywhere. We're talking like 2009 maybe?
There were a decent smattering of people with laptops that I remember in my lectures, but I always liked pen and paper. I remember stuff better.
You know what? Let's get back on topic, though. Magic items, because we have a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Well, you can't just say get back on topic. Start the topic.
Magic items.
So our first set of magic items, the avid listener may have noticed that they had a lot to do with the bloodied condition.
Yes. Hence our fear in using them, and also not being bloodied.
One might say that this is a bit of foreshadowing on the DM's part. He intends to bloody us. Foreshadowing, wishful thinking. I mean, they're often the same thing when you're running a tabletop RPG. All of those, all of those items except the frozen dagger are homebrew items. But now this latest batch now at the end of 15 are actually out of the Griffin's Saddlebag third-party content, 5e content. I have their first 2 books. I'm not sure how many are out, but they come with a smattering of, their own homebrew, I suppose, for 5e magical items and other races and stuff. So a lot of them were pretty cool, and I kind of just leafed through, seeing which ones caught my eye, and I purposely chose ones that weren't weapons or armor or anything like that, just kind of different types of items. I thought that would be interesting and perhaps useful. But I think this batch of episodes, we've had a lot more time to see and have aspects of Stormcape described and explored. Obviously, I mean, just in 7 and 8, you've kind of, you walked well into this large chunk of the city's bureaucracy, essentially, with these MINs, these identification numbers, right? And the equivalent of the DMV here in the Stormcape.
That was classic.
Honestly, it's funny because, like, obviously World Anvil is a great tool that we're using, but also to set up with every bit of information, it takes a ton of time. So much like how I prep is, I'll take the time to really flesh out the areas in which it's most likely that the party is going to be visiting and spending time. So some of these episodes, like when you went to Lonnie's house, he lives out in the waterway. It gave us a chance, and it gave me, as the DM, a chance to explain to you as players, also the audience, and kind of cement what your characters know in this area of the city about how it works. I mean, just how, it's canaled section of the city. You can only get out there, travel around by water taxis, so all the different little islets here, by which they're named, of course, and also how it helps keep the Stormcape Bay at a fairly consistent level, no matter what the tide is, right? So I like that part. I like that part of, like, you get to, okay, we're going to this corner of the city, is like, great. This is now I know where I have to put my focus rather than shotgunning my efforts in prep, essentially, in world building. I think it honestly really helps when the party kind of has an actual direction that they know they're heading towards.
Yeah, I like how, it's like every part of the city has a different feel to it. I guess I've never lived in a big city, but I would assume there are parts of the city you don't go to maybe once or twice every few years, right? Like, unless you have a reason to go over to the waterways, why? So it wouldn't be out of place for the characters to be a little unfamiliar with some of the things that are happening in different parts of the city. But yeah, I like how has its own little, each burg, or however you want to say it, what do they call it in the cities?
Oh, boroughs, yeah.
Boroughs, yeah, little boroughs, and how they sort of separate out.
I think it was my comment where it became obvious and you were able to correct me, like, actually, it's not streets, it's waterways. And I was like, oh, duh, I knew that. It's like, I always say that when I'm Opal. Yeah, totally forgot. I knew what Min was, duh.
Why would I guess just from a standpoint of topography, but the prisoners are under the rich people.
I was also thinking about that Quinky Dink, that
it's hard to dig up
because the rich people like to shit on the prisoners.
Yeah.
Is it all the criminals need to stay in close proximity to each other?
Well, as far as city real estate goes, the amount of space available under the plateau in that large, formation of rock, and yes, it takes time to obviously create it. But I think mostly, like, from the Founders, I mean, looking at where the Founders Hall is at the very tip of the plateau there, overlooking the bay and stuff, and the rest of the city, if something's directly underneath of you, you're not looking at it. When you look at quote unquote your view, if you kind of take the perspective of the founding families, I suppose, I mean, they would consider that this city to be theirs and everything in it to be theirs, or to lay claim to anything inside of it produced, any monetary value that would be derived from it in the name of the city themselves. So I guess it's putting them, one, literally underneath them,
Yep.
but also out of sight and kind of out of mind. And other than what you've been informed now about this secret entrance or little tunnel access around the back of the prison, there's only one way in and one way out. When you're burrowed into essentially a cave is what they throw the prisoners of Stormcape into.
Emily and I went to see
Princess Bride.
with Carrie Elway's thing. Yeah, and we went up to a place, the top of a hill, looks down over Cincinnati.
Prima Vista.
Prima Vista was the name of it. It's all in the name. Looking out over the city, the cityscape was really cool. I was wondering what it looks like at the rich part of the city, looking out and seeing, the big green desolate domain fog, and then how far out can you see? Can you see the gardens all the way on the other side of the city? And what's the perspective look like up there?
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely in the daytime on a clear day. I mean, I think a general, if it was you or I, our general visibility is out to a few miles, right? 2 or 3 miles of visibility on flat land. I mean, think of it like when we were all visiting last April in Vancouver, the Airbnb house in which we were staying was, I mean, that's the what did they call it? The British Isles or whatever the hell that area of West Vancouver is called. Essentially, we were up at the very top of this bloody hill overlooking the entirety of Vancouver too, right? From our vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine something kind of similar to that. Obviously, not quite that scale, but yeah, that's a good question.
How tall is the tallest building in Stormcape? How many stories?
Toggles and sprockets.
Well, yeah, maybe toggles and sprockets if they keep adding onto it. But the actual tallest building by far in Stormcape is the planar tower, which is a few hundred feet tall, but it's like very narrow. Like it looks like it shouldn't be able to stand, or it should be wobbling and moving way more than it does, considering how tall it is and by how narrow it is. So definitely, like at anywhere you are in the city, you can see the planar tower on a good visibility during the daytime, right?
Yeah, I just imagine looking out over it. You look at the right underneath. You're standing at the southern end of the rich place.
It never gets
looking
old.
out, and you're looking down, and you see, in the Quarler's exhibition area. I don't picture that as being a very well kept area. Like maybe not old house, but like older places and bars and a lot of noise and stuff. Then you look over, to the right a little bit and see the den and all the bad old houses and everything. Then a little bit more into the main part of the city, where I think if you look down at the center, the Mercantile Exchange area, I assume that's like bigger buildings, stone structures and things like that.
Probably some of the more established vendors, yeah, but also it's like bazaar right as well, like pop-up tents for if any of you wanted to rent out some space to sell some stuff there, like that's probably what you would have too, right? So there's like kind of a smattering of that as well. But I mean, think of definitely buildings like the Buyers Market, which is in that district, certainly like the way you're picturing, absolutely it's how it's constructed.
Well, like we were saying, the masons and all that, they cut all the stone and they build these. Where are the stone structures in the city?
For sure, in the Assemblers Row, absolutely, like where their guild hall is. In the Denizens, probably mostly wooden buildings. Waterways would also have maybe a mix, but obviously more districts appear to be more wealthy than others as well, right? So that's where you would find those types of buildings, the materials that you would expect to be more long lasting. I mean, but that's also goes into like the Masons will maintain the wall of the city too as well, and all the gates within the city are like lavishly built and constructed. Some of them out of alabaster due to some historical events and that kind of stuff, right?
So thus far, we've been to almost every district, right? We haven't been over where the graveyard is.
No. I was thinking of that, yeah.
Yeah, collectively, the party has visited, like, on episode, every bit of the city. I mean, you haven't really gone into the storage system districts, but other than the plateau and, like you say, yeah, over by the Highland graveyard, the Highland cemetery, you've been kind of everywhere. Obviously, the Denizen. You briefly met Big Bob in the Burrow. Toggles and Sprockets is in Artisanal Alley. You visited the DMV in the Cognition District. Of course, the Waterway at Lonnie's. And, well, the party hasn't been in the Assembler's Row because Rumpke
Yeah.
likes to steer clear of that a little bit. So you haven't really been into that district, I suppose.
So far with the city, as a DM, how do you feel? Do you like the world building of a city versus the Aspara? I don't know.
Literal world.
Universe.
Okay, universe.
Yes.
Multiverse.
Well, the world of Santa is obviously far larger than Aspara, but being focused in Stormcape it definitely feels different. I don't know if it feels different for you all while we play, and how your characters are like interacting, how you as a players think about how your characters interact with the world, having it in this city. And I don't really know how to put into words how different it is. It's
No,
just like,
I agree with you though.
maybe it's more, I feel almost more pressure because it feels like everything is under a microscope now, like just because it feels way smaller, obviously. And, in Aspara, we try to make all the different locations feel as different as we make try to make the districts feel too, right? Like, obviously, comparing how Zexa feels to Drukal back in Campaign 1, right? I'm trying to emulate that in the city, so the city feels varied, and it's not like everywhere you go in the city just feels the same, right?
I think the big thing for me is like in Aspara, when you were traveling from one place to another, there was always the fear of running into something. There was monsters. There was, things that could cause a problem. Here, the only thing I'm really worried about is killing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the ramifications of that.
The reputation that we hold with other people and what other people can see even makes us play a little bit slower, think a little bit harder than usual. Like, I'm thinking ahead. We're not obviously discussing the prison break, but it just feels like things, like, we really zoom in and make sure, like, our plan is airtight.
Yeah. I felt like in Aspara, you almost had like a bit of sense of anonymity. Like, you could kind of get away with stuff and, it might never catch up to you, but like you're saying, John,
now there's a newspaper.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
if you kill somebody within a city, that's potentially a really big deal.
Unless they're already dead.
We're going to need to get to know some reporters.
Yeah.
So we can pay 'em
that's
off.
actually a really good idea.
You could visit the Storm's Herald and maybe get chatty with some of the reporters.
No, I like the machinations because
Yeah.
they seem more our speed.
It's scholarly.
You want to go?
yes.
You want to go talk to Teddy and see what he has to say?
People will believe anything.
Well, honestly, like, looking into back issues of some of these outlets is certainly like a potential for additional information from the
Oh,
party.
you have back issues? Psh, now you tell us.
Well, I mean, they're outlets if you were looking for information. The Machination has only been around for a few months, but obviously Storm's Herald has been operating for like a century, so they have a lot of information. I mean, their back issues could be a font of it, right? Especially like looking historically of what's been going on in the city too.
It's like every single interaction you have. So, like, Opal's had several interactions with the guards. If we run into guards and we need to, like, fight guards, she's going to hesitate. Like, all these things are just very, I don't know. It's different. Like, I don't know how else to describe it either.
Well, and assuming you all end up actually signing Zalmo's contract, like, I think that's just going to change things even further for all of you within the city, right? I mean, that is the point, and that is part of like what Zalmo is telling you that he's offering to you. He's offering you like a different life entirely, almost, right? Benefiting from the only relationships Zalmo has painstakingly crafted and built up. So when I put it like that, he's kind of a bit of an idiot entrusting the four of you, tying the four of you to his name whatsoever. But
we haven't got any counter offers from other people. You know, like maybe the founders want to hire us for something, or maybe there's other people who'll pay more than Zalmo.
maybe. I mean, you could see maybe the Trinity can give you a better
Yeah,
offer.
the Trinity. Yeah.
It pays to shop
I mean,
around.
we've already proved ourselves.
Yeah. Don't get too hasty here. I'm not sure how Kylie would feel about that, but
Not so great, no.
I mean, it's a good point. Like, if we are representing Zalmo and we were to do something like that would really tarnish his name, like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I wonder, like, what he's prepared to deal with, what kind of mess he's prepared to clean up.
I mean, look at this guy could be very nasty because he's got an orphanage and everything. You do all that thing for the politics of it, right? Everybody will think you're good. That's look at Carnegie and all of them, the philanthropists. They give all their money away so people will look over all the really crappy stuff they've done.
It's a tax break
in their life.
Yeah.
So Zalmo may just he just might appear like he's a relatively nice guy, but he could be the worst.
It does, bring up the point that he's kind of entrusting a portion of his reputation to us, right? I mean, I guess he could probably fairly easily distance himself from us if we were to do, something really stupid, and he could just say, "Oh, I wasn't involved with that."
Yeah, no contracts or anything. There's no paperwork trail.
That's why he has that paper that disappears.
That's right.
No trail. Prove it.
I mean, so obviously you can tell by the way you're all speaking about Zalmo, like I can figure out how each of you / maybe your characters probably feel about Zalmo in general.
I'm not sure how to feel. Like, he gives bad guy vibes, but there's not a lot of like concrete, it's not based on any like hard evidence though. It's just kind of like a gut feeling that I have.
It's like, do our characters know what Kylia's punishments are and things like that? Like, I kind of forget.
We talked about that.
Okay, so if you told us, 100% that's my bad guy vibe then. It's like, why are you, like, so punishing?
He punishes us by not talking to us.
But it's like she thinks of him and steals for him at every occasion, and then...
That's what he employed me to do.
No, and then, like, one little thing and he doesn't talk to you, and it's like a whole...
One little thing of being gone for a week without telling him where I was going.
Yeah, I mean, we all were a little pissed.
So he's like a tax collector for the people that don't know they're paying taxes.
Different kind of taxes. I think Hellcruck is a bit more... His mind's a bit more set at ease after, like, directly talking to Kylia about, okay, well, like... And I think Hellcruck was maybe worried that there might be, like, some physical or other type of abuse going on, which there isn't. So I think Hellcruck's less worried about Zalmo being a bad dude, but Bill is still kind of, like, not convinced we can totally trust him.
I don't think Kylie would say you could totally trust him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a better way to say it would be, I'm not totally convinced that he's not, like, evil and up to some really bad stuff that none of us know about.
Well, yeah, how long until we do something, it fails, and then he points the finger at us and throws us under the bus?
Guess it depends on how spectacularly we fail.
That's what I'm saying. We're good for him if we succeed and come back and we're successful. The second we screw up, I don't know.
I think Rumke's reputation's already sort of in the gutter, and aligning yourself with the wrong person's not going to help get that back. So I think he's still sort of feeling it out at this point, but he doesn't trust him.
Yeah, well, and also presumably, like, despite tying himself to the four of you and your actions, clearly he sees some value in contracting the four of you I mean, admittedly, a very, 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 very open-ended context other than committing assassinations. That's literally that's the ceiling.
I know.
Everything below it, if you, again, assuming a sign, is up for grabs, right? So yeah, it's incredibly open-ended as far as your potential job description here, but you also get a lot of, I mean, you do get quite a lot of benefits. Like 60 gold pieces, that's more, like if you're kind of looking at like a lifestyle and expenses chart in any like DMG or whatever, like that's well above a moderate living, right? Like you're higher than a moderate living. I think it's almost twice. I think a moderate living is considered like 30 gold pieces a month or so to like.
It's like a gold a day or something. Yeah. So.
Yeah, basically a gold a day to like live pretty well, right?
And our apartment is furnished.
Not to mention a furnished house. I mean, that's worth, I would assume, a decent amount. And it's a pretty on surface, you know, it
too good.
It seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too good of a deal, you know?
No.
Yeah.
We don't need to think too far into it.
Do you each doubt? So are you doubting that your character can actually offer to Zalmo something worth the benefits of signing?
I think we are capable of earning the value of that contract. I just worry about how much trouble we're going to get into potentially. You know what I mean? Like you could see how doing illegal things would probably warrant a higher remuneration than doing things that are legal and honest labor, right? So
yeah, we're not exactly paying taxes, if you know what I mean.
I think Rumpke thinks you're hiring him to go sort of rough people up and scare them, like we did on the first job. That's a lot of money, but, you know, take the advantage as you can, as they come. I think his big problem was, you know, when he said, you have to be available to me when I need you, I think it sort of felt like you're his lackey, right? You're on call.
Yeah.
And there's no, I don't want to hear any excuses. You're mine. I own you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the feeling Rumpke got, which was why he was a little hesitant.
What if we just like lock the door and seal off the little mail slot in the door so that he can't deliver letters to us?
I'm sure he'd just give up.
Yeah.
Keep on paying the rent every month and sending the checks. So I mean,
get some really good curtains.
He just tears up, stomps his foot every time this happens. Well, I don't know. I'm excited to see how each of you navigate your budding relationship with Zalmo, and I definitely am beginning to like. I like Zalmo quite a bit. Like I like playing Zalmo as an NPC, and yeah, there's a bit of time where he kind of gives me a little Izzy vibes as he's conversing with each of you. But yeah. So are you like quote unquote? Is there some form of metagaming in there, perhaps
flashbacks
based on past experience? Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, because like Kylia really did, like the immediately after the dinner, like Kylia. As Bill was saying, like assuaged some of Hellcrux concerns for sure, as far as how Zelma treats, you know, his quote unquote his children at the castle, and by all accounts, it seems that he wants nothing but the best for the kids.
Yeah,
it's just everyone has to pull their weight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, after talking to Kylia, I think Hellcrux feels a lot less worried about Zelmo. It's more so just my gut feeling, I think, which is, you know, like you're saying, a bit metagamey.
All the kids sort of have this feeling like they're, you know, is this anticipation of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so you just get the feeling you're in the dinner and you're sitting there and the kids are doing stuff, and if he just went, bah! You know, they'd all just crap their pants.
And
right?
I now feel like I'm in that situation where like something's going to happen. Like
I guess Hellcrux maybe just thinks that it's kind of a relationship with like a strict parent figure, essentially, you know, like where the kids are like, oh, better behave or else we're going to get in trouble. But, you know, that's not necessarily, doesn't make someone evil, right? They're just a person who kind of demands respect and that sort of thing.
So the opposite of Lehan's parenting philosophy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't seen Zelmo half naked yet, so
Like to keep it that way.
I mean, I just keep waiting for you all to try to hook up Lehan with Granny Nanny. I was just fingers crossed that was gonna happen.
We don't know. We don't know. We haven't seen them together in the same room yet.
Thank you for the idea.
Like, it could be the same person.
Oh, are you gonna have to role play with yourself? That's so sad. You're really cute. And you're like, you're so handsome.
Faster.
Okay, so my thought is, and I'm curious what other players think, because I have an opinion on this. Do you feel like we're sacrificing if we sign the line and go down the prison storyline, saving Happy, saving the Benito dude? Because really, we know there's a bread battle and like another situation that's going on. How do you feel about this?
thankfully, you know, I think the whole prison break thing will take maybe a couple hours at most, so
Right.
shouldn't be a big delay.
Does it seem like a side quest to you guys? That's
Just a wham bam, thank you ma'am. In and out, done. Then we get back to the bread battle. It's all good.
so a
That's
short
what
side
Hellcrux
quest.
hoping. But yeah, no, I see your point. Like, let's say it does end up taking us a couple days or something.
It is connected though, because Happy is in the jail as far as we know, and we need to
True.
save him.
Yeah.
How much do you think your characters care about saving Happy?
And that's why I'm asking this question, I think, is because Opal actually doesn't feel like it's a side quest. It's like she was part of a secret team and he trusted her, and like,
Right.
so like she really does care. I just wonder how much you guys actually care and like how much I was sort of steamrolling, I guess.
Hellcrux cares maybe a little bit less than Opal, but definitely does still like see Happy as a nice person who kind of, you know, trusted us, and that warrants trying to help him.
I think Rumpke is a little less than Hellcrux.
So we've got it. We're developing a spectrum here.
So is Kylie going to be at the very bottom of this
Verizon
hair
commercial. Yeah.
spectrum?
Yeah. Never having met him, actually.
Yeah. I don't think he has anything against Happy, but I don't think he wants to risk. The risk is too high to go to try to find him if it's not easy.
Yeah, same for Kylie. She's only doing it to help Opal.
And what about Seychelles?
Seychelles could not care less.
Seychelles has a secret crush on Happy.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I suspected. And so, like, thinking about it, sometimes I'm like, man, I'm really choosing the fork in the path, I guess. Because what will Happy even know when we get him out? Maybe nothing more than we do, so hopefully the guards can come up with something with the info I gave them. Like, I don't know.
So why is Happy in prison?
Possibly because he knows something.
Right. That could lead to some more information that could help us out, I think. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
Theoretically, he didn't trust people in the department, right? And he basically said he can't talk to anybody about this, right?
Yeah, essentially he told you after Sergeant Vepper, his partner, got blown up at the buyer's market shortly after Kylie and Opal were there and hospitalized. Happy's been basically reduced back to his rank of constable, like, you know, patrolling streets, and he can't really investigate, or he hasn't been tasked with investigating the incident at the Founders Parade, which Vepper was obviously interested in and following up in after his little quick interview with Opal, right? After immediately after those events in like episode 2, you talked Fepper was who Opal had talked to, right? Making all those scribble notes
Mhm.
in like episode 2 or whatever.
Does Happy know that his brother was on the case? Or, like, we don't know that. Are you able to tell us?
You don't know that his brother was actually on the case of the late night Lopper, but you did, if you reading the latest issue of Storm's Herald, certainly, you know that, and from Opal's conversation with Sergeant Bannon, that Happy's higher ranking brother was a victim of the late night Lopper. Now, I don't know if it was on mic somewhere or if I was just talking with Elena about it, but Happy's brother wasn't a victim. Happy's brother was a past victim. Like the events at Lonnie's and the victims there that were discovered, like Happy's brother was part of past victims of the Lopper from the last like 6
It
months.
just
of the
makes
Lopper
me
operating or
suspect
whatever,
that's
right?
why Happy wants to look into it, like under no
Oh
orders,
yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah, there has to be motivation. For
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Happy does know that his brother was a victim or suspect, and then like now it's confirmed. And
Didn't Bannon said, Sergeant or whatever, Bannon said that Happy wasn't assigned to the case, but his brother was a victim, and so that, he suspects that's why Happy's wanting to look into it more and potentially had asked Opal.
And a key part about the victims found around the headless tree or whatever, right? Which you would note if you read that latest Storm's Herald's article, that the tree itself was never mentioned anywhere in the article. So as far as like it's being kept out of the press, you could assume, right, for whatever reason. But the heads found there were matched to previous victims, not the victims of the headless bodies found.
bodies are found first, heads are found later. On the
Correct.
tree.
So this latest round of 5 or 6 victims that were around the Death Heads tree, their heads are not found. So they're presumed identified, right? Their presumed identities have been reported on, but not confirmed until they can actually find their heads.
They're
basically,
fertilizing
cover
the
their
next
heads.
tree.
I mean, yeah, you could absolutely.
Happy's brother has that birthmark in his upper left thigh, and they checked, and it's
The book we found did say something about how the tree is created, right? Or like how it can move around, or how they can replant it regrows. Is that correct?
all I see is heads hanging upside down by their cervical spine on a branch.
So the ritual of the Deadwood from the Zealot of the Bread Battle book describes the ritual and the process of like planting and nourishing the Death Heads tree. So you're absolutely right, John. And it's like basically you take a corrupted seed, like they corrupt a seed from the tireless glade. So it's derived from as you know, the tireless glade is like composed of trees that just don't stop growing. So it's like utilizing those seeds from the glade and then basically twisting and warping them, which would also attribute to how quickly they can sprout up.
So is our pre-play session the initial tree?
We've referenced a number of times a bit of events that had happened before we even started recording and before Founders Day had even happened.
Have all the bodies got heads?
You talked to Manny about the tree in the hedge maze, and was that this first tree within Storm Cape?
Can you what happened with Manny and his wife? Just real quick.
Everybody wants to know. This is
the hot goss that the machinations need.
After party.
Yeah.
Was it in the paper?
He said, well, she's
It's like-
alive. She's
no,
getting alimony.
Wasn't reported on. Wasn't interesting enough to report on.
Oh, dang it.
Maybe in the middling machination. I don't know. Teddy will draw up any story and put it into his paper. But it's like any failing relationship. You just over time you just realize that you're just not meant to be.
Just
There's no one specific instance in which you could really point to, but it's a series of things.
Did the Clipper drinking start before the breakup or after?
That's a good question.
That may or may not have been a factor. Yeah. One of many dominoes that toppled over.
One of the straws, yes.
Yes. One of the straws that broke the Minotaur's back.
Well, Manny right into the what's the thing in the paper? Where
Oh, dear Agatha.
Missed connections.
Dear Dorothy, I think.
Dear Dorothy.
Yes, Dorothy.
Agatha.
I want a Manny. Talking about that. I saw you on the streets on Oregon.
I saw you in
late one
Opal's
night.
hidey hole.
You were wearing a red sweater.
I saw your bedroll. It looks really nice. She didn't poison your rations. I was going to say, listening back, Opal was a little bit poisony for a second there.
Opal is
Yeah.
very
poison happy. Yeah.
Opal is into
Yes.
her, like, whatever's the new thing. So first it was poisons. Now she's like an entrepreneur trying to, like, blend businesses. Like, she's just like... she's got big...
So obviously issues of Storm's Herald that we're talking about and Zalmo's contract are in World Anvil. Have any of you gone back since we were recording and you guys were first looking at them? Has any of you actually gone back and read through it in its entirety?
I have, but it's been a while ago. Not recently.
Shakes head no. Yeah. Yeah, as we do.
Then obviously no clauses and articles and subclauses, whatever the hell you call them. I think I called them a bunch of different things in episode 15. But nothing that jumps out at you as being
so
okay.
much of it. So much of it. You did a really good job. Your legalese
really like
is great.
Yeah, Kylie didn't read the first time. She has not gone back and read it since.
Yeah, I have read it.
I read it that day.
It was quite contracty sounding.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
I didn't like the stuff at the end, mostly, I think. I didn't like that the hires agree to immediately disclose to the patron all confidential information developed in whole or part by the hires during the term of contract. Basically, he expects us to tell him everything. Woo, woo, red flag. I don't like it.
Well, if you forget to tell him something, then you're in breach of contract.
And what does breach of contract do?
Well, it could lead to termination and retribution as Zalmo sees fit.
Retribution, exactly.
So obviously, yeah, it's like an NDA and like a non-compete stuff in there, right? And other than what you had kind of told to him, well, I want to still fight, I want to still work at Lehan's, etc. And a few of those lines function, also have like mechanical functions. So listed in the contract, like you're expected to basically give Zalmo a report, essentially, after you've done one of his tasks, whether you failed or succeeded. Now that serves obviously, because Zalmo will certainly want to stay as informed as he possibly can on events in which he isn't there in person. But also, it gives me the opportunity, and you as players, to submit to me, the DM, the information that you are explicitly sharing with Zalmo. So then I know what you have and have not told Zalmo. Just so it's very clear. Because obviously...
And what we did and did not pick up on.
Well, yeah, there's some of that.
Well, there's a little... Yeah, I get some extra benefits in that regard. But like that's very important, right? Because you as a group need to discuss and disclose. I mean, you're expected to disclose everything. But you may need to think about just what you actually disclose to Zalmo after events have occurred. And also think about, well, if we hold back this bit of information, what other sources could potentially get back to him about that, related to that information? And if we hold it back now, what's the likelihood of us actually getting discovered that we did hold it back and then therefore are in breach of the contract and, susceptible to the termination clauses? So I think it's good. Just believe me, it's good.
Yeah.
Look, in the end, it doesn't really matter,
Just
because if
believe me.
we are going breach of contract, the only thing he can do is stop paying us and kick us out of the house. He's not going to take us to court with this document, right?
Not
So
with
it's
the
just
document.
pretty much of him putting the rules out there and saying,
He can kill us with this
you're
document.
agreeing that, yeah, I mean, he can kill us if we have a document or not. He's basically just saying, I'm giving you these perks this good money and a place to live, and if you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to take that all away. That's really all he can do other than kill us.
It sort of expounds on what I was saying earlier. The microscope is so zoomed in, and every little action has a reaction, that we have to be really smart if we lie to him ever or withhold something, right? Like Leland was saying, like really know who would know what. And that's what feels different about this campaign in some way too.
Well, to Bill's earlier point of anonymity compared to Stormcape versus Aspara, signing on this dotted line, like you are giving up your right to anonymity, basically. Like that's a part of it, right? Up until now, there's still opportunity in a very large city for you to still conduct yourselves under some type of anonymity. I mean, obviously, if Opal's running off to the guard and reporting every time something happens, maybe that throws a little wrench into that possibility, right? But it was still there. Under now, you're going to, in the contract, you're listed as almost specialist now, like you have a title. If people are going to be referring to you, or in the context of Zalmo's business, that is how they'll refer to you as a group. Like you're also giving up anonymity within the city here.
If Brick decides to get back at us, they're going to think twice now that we have
we're specialists.
Zalmo
Yeah.
behind us, right?
You'd think.
I mean, I think it wouldn't be immediately known, like citywide, that we're Zalmo's specialists, but yeah.
You don't think Zalmo will put out a little what are they, like
note
engagement?
in the paper?
Yeah, an engagement
Little
announcement in the Storm's Herald.
Is there gonna be a gathering with hors d'oeuvres and fancy wine to celebrate the engagement?
Yeah, you each need to get sworn in. You'll be knighted, and then.
Yeah, I don't want to go to a fight. And this card is Zalmo's little bitch.
Hey, listen, Kylea said in this set of episodes, there's always time for love, or something like that.
I don't remember that.
Because Hellcrack was talking about dating. He had this date, and then like Kylea was like,
he doesn't have a date.
Kylea was like, there's always time for love.
Honestly, at the time, that flew over my head that he was just like trying to make up an excuse.
Yeah, it was a made up. Yeah,
that he could. I was like, what is he talking about?
Actually, I
messaged because after we were done playing, I DM'd Bill on Discord. I was like,
who's this date?
Who's this? We want to have a date? And he's like, I was just making that up.
No way.
I remember that. I thought you were just joking.
No, I wasn't. I was like, hey, if you want to date somebody, let's make up an NPC that you're dating.
I immediately knew he was trying to like make a cover story. That's so funny.
Hilarious.
Oh goodness.
That's too good. I think Kylea, honestly, okay, Emily, tell me if you feel this way. So there's some Kylea Seychelles blackouts, I guess, during the fight, whatever that was, where Seychelles took over. But also as the episodes went on, I listened to like 6 of them today. Kylea goes from being pretty chipper and friendly to kind of like less so. I don't know.
That's partially Emily.
Oh, okay.
There was one play where I was in a bad mood, and you're all like, what's going on with Seychelles? I'm like, no, that was Kylea. And
when we thought it was Seychelles talking?
Yeah, that was just me in a bad mood.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah, I don't notice any difference anytime. So. just all Emily, really.
Yeah,
Are you able to tell us as listeners what happened with Seychelles Kylea in the fight? And we'll just like try to ignore that we know that.
I don't know if I want to. I still don't trust my ability to separate what Bill knows and what Hellcrack knows.
Yeah, I did not listen to Kylea's like solo part. I don't think
didn't either.
Rumpke's either.
After almost 6 years, Bill, you can't separate?
I'm just really bad at that.
6 years!
I know. I will say I listened back to all of the episodes except for one, I think, today, and I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary about Kylea in like one episode versus the next. So.
She was just like optimistic.
Well, I think in later episodes, like her and Zalmo were on bad terms, right? Like that.
Yeah, there was that, and she was disappointed with herself for breaking the promise and all that stuff.
Right.
So that was part of it too, yeah.
I feel like sometimes being granted your independence didn't seem like happy enough for Kylea. So I was like, maybe Seychelles part of that.
No, I
That's a
just
big
think
deal, right?
it wasn't as big a deal to her as it was to Opal.
Oh.
Because Kylia didn't feel trapped as Opal thinks Kylia is.
Oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Okay.
I mean, Kylia pretty much has had free reign of the city. She just needed to check in, and she had duties to do, like chores. So it wasn't like as big a deal as Opal was thinking it was.
That actually makes sense. Because I might have the misconception, like you said, that like you're being sort of trapped or forced, or like you ease our minds on some of this stuff, but yeah.
I mean, originally, but that was years ago.
How long have you been with Zelma?
5 years, Leland?
Yeah, I
Well,
think
that's
so.
a pretty long time.
Not long enough to separate those things out.
And in terms of like... in terms of like, in the fight, Seychadal taking over, do you have any comment on that we can hear or no?
Just that Seychadal is trying to preserve her way in the world. And she thought Kylia was taking unnecessary risks. Wanted to get out of there.
I mean, Seychadal also committed the party's first murder, too, in the campaign so far. And she killed the last cultist at the base of the Death Head tree as he was kind of chasing you all as well. To date, there hasn't seemed to be any ramifications of that. Obviously, you were only at that scene during the fight and didn't see what the aftermath looked like. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you think... obviously, anybody that's listened to Campaign 1 knows that there's going to be a number of narratives playing out at the same time in a campaign that I run. And that is, of course, the case in Storm Cape. In some of our future recorded stuff, we kind of see more of a glimpse at maybe another potential strand that's kind of hanging out there and blown in the wind that the party may or may not want to pull on when they get an opportunity. But is this stuff like Lonnie now being picked up by the Trinity, as far as Zalmo says anyways, and the Late Night Lopper / the Bread Battle, like, are those two things you think are connected here? Other than maybe just Lonnie being, maybe it's only Lonnie being the connection between those two, right? Because Lonnie's clearly involved with both of these kind of narratives that have been playing out in the city so far.
I don't think we have enough information to draw those conclusions yet.
Yeah. I've been struggling to sort of piece everything together so far. I think you'd have to be smarter than I am to figure out what's going on based on what we know so far.
Or more deranged.
Yeah, more deranged is probably more accurate.
That was actually one of my questions listening back, was like, I feel like I don't have that many, like, I feel like for being episode 15 or wherever we're leaving off, like, we don't have that much information on the head tree bread battle situation. And that's sort of where I started thinking, like, wait, did I sidetrack us?
Well, we've got a decent amount of information, really, but also I think not enough to fully know what's going on.
Not like a smoking gun. Yeah.
Which is, like, I think appropriate for where we are in the campaign.
It's spattered around over 15 episodes, and we don't know how all the pieces sort of fit together. You know, when you write it, when you're the DM, you know why you put this thing here for you to find.
Well, he pretends to know, yes.
And then we pick it up and we go, throw it over here in a box. Right?
Right. Well, now you can put all those things in a house if you sign the contract.
This is just a ploy to try to get us to get all our pieces of stuff together in one room.
So you can set it
honestly,
on fire.
It's to get the four of you together in one spot more often. I don't have to put in the butt of bops quite as much.
I'm gonna miss Frank though.
I kind of one of the last things I wanted to ask you each is about the downtime that we've now kind of experienced on a couple of occasions. The first time was like 2 or 3 days, I believe, and then now this latest bout was 2 weeks of time passing, and we kind of had a bit of like flashback stuff when we saw a bit of what happened in those 2 weeks, which, like, I don't know if that defeats the purpose of having the downtime and just skipping ahead, but whatever, because we're trying to tell a story and it's a narrative podcast, so like it makes sense, right? But there was still a bit about what happened in those downtime that we didn't see. We didn't see on Mike Kylia's walkabout, as it has now been come to be called. Just basically what Kylia had told Hellcrook about and the rest of the party about and recanted for the rest of the party.
Her giant mistake, as I like to call it.
That's so good.
So that, for the listener, basically that took the form of Emily and I just essentially messaging back and forth on Discord and just DMing and role playing out in DMs. Basically, is how that went down. So we at least Emily, as a player, has a record of that, of what happened. There's a little bit of information there she could have maybe used, but has yet to act upon. But just the very fact that now Kylia and the rest of the party know that there are giants out there that Kylia has made contact with, which Kylia kind of gleaned very, very little bit about the bread battle. She had kind of said that they got obviously very, very fearful when she brought up the bread battle, said dangerous, bad, stay the hell away from it, basically. So like you have an avenue if you do really want to try to find as much information as you can, obviously, right? Now that's going to take you outside of the city. And that kind of brings me to the other part about the downtime and life in the city and what we've already touched on is like, we've had 2 combats in 15 episodes. Is that not enough for everybody? Like, is that too little?
It has been a little heavy on the combat, I will say.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're bringing this up now.
Thanks for asking.
I'll answer last because I'm historically the person who likes role-playing more than combat, so my opinions...
Okay, immediate gut reactions. I never end a recording being like, dang, that was boring. I never end a play session being like, man, I wish I rolled more dice. But if you think about the fact we're playing a game and how much do we roll a dice for, like an insight and a combat, yeah, maybe we're lacking in that. But it does not affect that I like playing in the story that we're developing. So as long as everyone else is cool with that, we want more fights, I'm cool with that.
I don't miss it, but I think there is a portion of role-playing and character development that has to do with your skill sets and how you use them. I like the role-play part of it better than the battle part, because I think battles can sometimes drag a little bit. But, I think for my character specifically, I think there's different things that are happening to want to showcase that change, and that will mainly result around fighting. So I think that is probably a little bit, but I think you can do that with downtime too, by describing things that have happened rather than necessarily playing it out in a battle.
We saw that at the beginning of episode 13 with Rumpke's fight and incident at the Bastion Clash, right? Obviously an event that we're only kind of seeing ripples of, as like it made the fact that a death occurred there, like, was reported on in the Storm's Herald. So obviously, like, the fighters weren't specifically named in the article or whatever, because that's not how the Brawlers Club makes sure that stuff kind of, like, yes, a death occurred and it's happy to be reported on, but the names are often kept out of publication and the people involved in that, because, as Rumpke will repeatedly say, anybody stepping into the ring, whether or not they're sanctioned and an actual member of the Brawlers Club or not, knows the risk of stepping into the ring and knows that something fatal happening is a possibility. And anybody that enjoys the fights and anybody that's a supporter of the Brawlers Club in general also knows that fact. So, like, the fact that a death occurred, while it's rare, isn't unheard of and, like, shocking to the rest of the city, right? But again, still, a death occurred, and potential ripples and consequences may occur as well, right? As inevitably things change when death occurs, right? I think in the city, like John, you had said earlier, like you're not traveling out in basically the wilderness between major cities, so there's less chance of running into something that you actually would fight, which makes a lot of sense. And obviously I don't want to shoehorn things into the city just so we're fighting. I mean, you're all gonna fight. You're gonna fight city guards every episode or two. You know what I mean? Like, so that's also part of it too. And I certainly miss the combat. I like creating combats. I like the challenge of creating combats that are varied. I mean, even like fighting the Hulk at Lonnie's. We had the guy pounding into the floor to drop you into reach of the death head tree, right? To ultimately try to feed you to it. So I like the creativity of putting those together.
Killing Kylea over and over again.
But what I will also say is for each of your characters, and again to John's point about that part of the progress of a character in this type of game, each of you seem to me to be in the unique position to, like you say, still develop those things during downtime. Rumkey is still partaking in fights and honing his brawling skills. Opal with her crafting of elixirs and potions and potentially poisons if she wants to delve further into that. Kylea in her activities for Zalmo, obviously she's been tasked with responsibilities that she is best equipped to do. And just this strictly the relationship that she has with Seisha Dahl as her patron, as her warlock patron, and very different from Zalmo's patronship he's offering. But that in itself is a progression of that relationship too, right? Especially with Seisha Dahl being so prevalent as a warlock patron, which can be very rare. Obviously, you can have a warlock where the patron may have no real concept of their even existence, right? But still bestowing powers upon them for their bidding, right? So I think that's very unique, and I like that. And obviously, Hellcruck, I think Hellcruck's always on a path of enlightenment isn't the right word, but just a path of like equalization. You know what I mean? Like just of centeredness, yeah. I think, and I think a lot of Hellcruck's path in that and his journey is actually working at Lehan's and being around and having those responsibilities and keeping himself tied to something that means something to him. So I really do think that each of your characters are in the you have the possibilities to further your class progression in quotations, right? As far as like gaining XP and developing new skills. It may not immediately on the surface be as prevalent that's where the capability is, but I definitely agree with you, John. Like the downtime gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to flesh that stuff out, even possibly more than if we were just playing day to day like we really did in Aspara.
Oh, I like it. I like the downtime, and it makes me feel more real because you're not going to always be hanging out with each other all the time, right? You're going to want to have those times when you're gone, and then, hey, what'd you do yesterday? Or, hey, I haven't seen you in a week. What's been up? And those are great times to insert, things that you want your character to. I went and ate at this place. I met this other person. You can add in new I know a guys. I ran into this guy on my downtime. That kind of thing. So
I was going to say, Leland, how did you like me knowing a guy? And it's like, oh, we have a translator back at Tacos and Sprockets.
Honestly, I think it's perfect. One, because it solved the problem of the language barrier, obviously, right? But also it does mean that you still need to take the time to achieve something. And in this case, like you very smartly made the decision to make yourself a copy, not just read off what the one-time, translation on this little screen thing, projector thing that your parents have come up with. I think it was a very smart idea to make a copy. And now you have a common translated copy. Obviously, Opal has given the original to Bannon, in addition to a lot of other information about the Red Battle in general. So no, I think that's awesome. Like that's why we like to have that rule, because you're totally right. That is utilizing that homebrew rule of knowing a guy, right?
Mm-hmm. And then second thought, is Lehan forgetful enough and old enough that he forgets he's messing with the Trinity gang and it's a gang? Is that true?
It sounded to me like he just rented the things out. What happened to the cart while it was gone? he knew it was going to be beat up a little bit when it came back, and, that's okay because I paid him well.
Him and Granny and
That's
Annie
what
are
I
going to
got
have
out
a
of it.
great time.
I think Lehan is far too kind of an old man to be actively doing business with such scoundrels.
I totally believe it.
And since he was going to give the place over to you, you think he would have somehow mentioned some of these side deals that you were going to inherit.
Right.
He hasn't inherited yet. He hasn't turned over the keys yet. There's no reason to tell him yet. till it's
Lehan
too
almost
late that he
died
can't
in
back.
episode 1.
Yeah, but he didn't.
That is
He was
fair. But he wasn't a main character until we made him one.
He could have.
That's Leland filling in the gaps after the fact. I will say that I chuckled to myself quite a bit, remembering us making fun of Hellcrux's large hands and his slapping abilities. Basically, he slaps people to death.
Look.
The slapper.
It's not a slapper, okay?
We called you the slapper the whole episode.
I know. It was difficult to listen back
And
to
you
that.
let us. You liked it. We gotta get you to learn some closed fist techniques, alright? At one point, Bill was kind of annoyed enough in IRL, probably, that was like, it's called open-handed technique.
That's what we call it, right, honey?
Look, Hellcrux's not spanking people, okay?
Do
Not for
the
free.
listeners do the listeners think we're gonna sign on the dotted line or not? Question mark.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear whether people think that Hellcrux and Rumpke, Opal, and Kylea are what they think each of them is going to want to do.
Put it in the comments below. Like and subscribe.
There you go.
Comment us what you would do in this situation.
On the topic of the mix of combat or lack thereof, I'd be curious to hear what people think as well, because it matters what us players are enjoying and not enjoying, but listener as well. I've always said that I am less interested in combat and more interested in RP, but I think I'm growing to appreciate combat more and more as time goes on. It's not that I ever disliked it, but I can see the point being made that a portion of your character are the skills that. Well, I mean, if you look at the character sheet, a massive percentage of your character are the skills that are related to combat. So I think it's fun to have combat here and there to remind yourself of what type of character you are and how you fight and the different abilities you have and that sort of thing.
To heal your friends and then hold it over them.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding. Listening back, I didn't realize how much it kept Kylie alive in that fight.
She did kind of get beat up on it. I mean, she
Like
got
2 different
paralyzed
times,
right away.
yeah.
And then, yeah.
Like bad.
I thought she was dead. I honestly thought I was going to be rolling up a new character.
Yeah, it was sad to listen back.
I'm looking forward to what may come if we end up going into the prison, or maybe we end up going to investigate the giants more and run into some trouble along the way or something.
I guess that really depends on how much the party cares about the bread battle. Because, I mean, to date, it doesn't seem like you have much of a reason to, other than maybe your relationship with Happy and wanting to help him in his endeavor of whatever his motivation, whether it's finding the killer of his brother or essentially just, maybe being loyal to the city and his duties as a guard of the city, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that's kind of what it's going to depend on, right? Whether or not you care, because essentially the constable asked you, right? He's not demanding that you aid him. I mean, Happy Lilton doesn't seem like the type of guy to demand anybody of anything to me anyways. But so obviously you had the choice. You could have been look, we don't care about Lonnie. I mean, obviously Opal connected very briefly to Lonnie in that very first episode. I mean, she was the one that ushered him out and got him away from the original instance of fighting the bread battle. So yeah, I guess it depends on what the party cares about. And now I suppose, again, if that contract is signed, it'll also come into play about what Zalmo cares about.
Fair. Yeah.
And in fact, that might just completely override what
Yeah.
the party cares about.
For 6 months, we got to be his beck and call. Come on.
I mean, how many jobs can he possibly have?
6 months of downtime, contract's over. Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the house.
I like it.
See ya.
I think Hellcruck, regardless of whether we sign this contract or not, but I think Hellcruck cares enough about the goings on of the city and just general safety of Storm Cape to want to look more into this bread beetle headed tree beheadings and treeing situation.
Yeah, if it's not safe in the streets, you're not going to be taxiing people around.
Well, yeah, I mean, who knows how many carriages could be destroyed thanks to this bread beetle running around.
Yeah, between the drugs and the beheadings, Stormcape does not sound like a very good, pleasant city to visit here.
I'll keep an eye on the newspaper, see if anybody gets hit by those new kids driving around the carriages. I mean, when you first get your license, you always have an accident. So there's like 10 of them.
Yeah, I'll make sure that they're reminded to check their blind spots and signal before they make a turn.
Would anyone else have carriages on the streets? Like maybe
That's a good.
rich
I was
people?
actually wondering that. I was meaning to ask Leland. Is Leanne's carriage like the Monopoly on carriages?
So Leanne's will be the only hireable carriage service as far as general we put it like they're the taxi basically. But obviously other people will own their own carriages and or horses to utilize and move things around the street. Caster's carrying service certainly would have a few of their own wagons and carriages to move the mail and deliverables themselves, right? But as far as shuttling people around the city, like Lehan, yeah, it's Lehan's or nothing really.
As it should be.
Do they charge by the mile? Do they charge by time? I mean, do they have a little thing that they click when people get in?
Yeah, I got a little magic meter. It's got its own min number. Everyone comes with their own min number. Own min.
That seems
period.
pretty high tech.
Min period. Yeah.
I'm thinking he just makes a notch.
By how seedy Lehan is their meters start at $10. You get in, they start at 10 gold, and they run you up from there.
How far back does Lehan's book go? We should have Hellcruck look into that. Just like reading the old newspapers.
Well, Lehan's pretty old. I mean, he's only a human though, so it's definitely limited as far as lifespans go.
Yeah, if he considers Hellcruck younger than him, they're probably the same age.
No, Lehan's significantly older than
Oh.
Hellcruck.
Yeah. Leanne's an old man. Hellcruck's.
Maybe you should date Granny Nanny.
Whoa.
Just saying.
Hellcruck's too busy for romance and for dating.
I think a Hellcruck voice and a Leland playing Granny Nanny would be primo.
I could just see you two at the doorstep of the orphanage. Right when you're leaving for the date night, you're going to lean in to give her a kiss, and she goes, "Now get the fuck out!"
Yeah.
Oh, man, I laughed so hard when I listened back to that.
He's so good.
Did not see that coming.
Half of the date's like, huh? What'd you say?
Well, without getting entirely into the nitty-gritty of some of these episodes, I mean, again, it was a lot to kind of just cover. But last thing I kind of will say about Stormcape specifically is, it wasn't until our last 2 plays that, I don't know, I just felt like I hadn't hit my own stride yet in the campaign, and I feel like I'm finally hitting it as far as my abilities and being judgmental of myself. No comment upon the 4 of you at all as players and your characters at all, but personally, I feel like things are really starting to click for myself and in this campaign. And I mean, I think the 4 of you have been clipping along since we started. So
Does this mean that You have a final idea of where this campaign's going? Is that why?
This campaign definitely is less open-ended than Aspara. And yes.
You have plots.
I mean,
and
we
plans.
wanted to wrap it up in like 40 episodes, right? So if we're thinking of that, then we're halfway done. But
I'm not ready for it to end.
15 is not half of 40. Thank you.
Well, we may end up in prison for 6 months, so it's a good way to get out of a contract.
Yeah. And those that have been paying attention will have seen our first episode of our, what are we calling this? Is our spin-off series, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
you
that
go.
works. That works.
Of Master Dungeon Master. Number 1, we did have Dylan Only on from Critical Crafting. And if you'd listened to that, you know who he is. He supplied us with our Folktales of Gristwood. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he supplied our Folktales of Gristwood stuff, and I mean a whole whackload more. Like we have so much. I have so much Critical Crafting stuff just in the 4 documents that he shared with us. And yeah, we just kind of figured we wanted to do something more. And we obviously really like doing the after parties, despite being able, despite the lack of being able to schedule them as frequently as maybe we would like. So I think part of it was like we wanted to be able to do something after party ish, but also have a chance to reach out and talk to other creatives within the TTRPG space. We don't have a set schedule for it at all, so they're basically going to release when we can schedule getting together with somebody and. Somebody will agree to be on the show with us.
Whenever we can convince someone.
Yeah, exactly. The other scheduling bit of that is, of course, it won't always have all 5 of us. Essentially, whatever works best for the guests as far as scheduling goes, and any of the IP that can make it and can fit it into our personal schedules, then that's just who's going to be on the episode. So, yeah, just hopefully we get to have some interesting conversations with some like-minded individuals as far as being in the space goes.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think our first one went really well, and I know we've tried in the past various different ways. I'm sure there's a better word for that, but anyway, we've tried to have guests onto the show, and it's been challenging, right? Like having guests be an NPC comes with its whole bunch of challenges and difficulties, but this is nice. I like that we get to have someone come on, talk about what they do, how they're a part of the tabletop community, and it's kind of low pressure for everyone involved, us as well as them. It's nice too, like you're saying about the scheduling thing. It doesn't have to be all of us. Like if I'm away or one of us is busy with work or whatever, can still do it. And so hopefully that'll mean content more often for the listeners, which would be good.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we'd love to play a one shot with these people. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, just making it more of a chat format. It just does make it easier to actually be able to collab with people and reach out to people and form some relationships of our own.
Playing with someone DMing that has published material would be interesting. Like they know the ins and outs, whether it's written in that handbook or not. Like it'd be very interesting. Like someone that's published knows it in and out, right?
Yeah. Like asking somebody to run their own stuff for us.
As long as I can play Thuff.
I agree with you.
That'll be the last time they run a one shot for us.
As long as it's not Cloaca, all right?
Oh, yeah, that's just going to be a toss up.
Oh, Chloe.
Oh, Chloe. Poor Chloe.
Who would you play on a one shot, Leland?
Free.
What am I picking from? Like my history
all of your one shot characters that we've done so far. With the French guy. French guy is
I go to Jacques, but no, Jacques is
Jacques.
Strictly for when Emily runs things.
Yes, fair. So
Jacques is reserved
Pam.
for Emily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who. Oh, you know what? I would probably be Bebop. Bebop the Shellless.
There you go.
My Dragonborn who thought he was a
Turtle.
A turtle. My pacifist Dragonborn turtle.
Bill.
Oh, I was hoping I wouldn't be next.
I'll give you a minute. My answer is Pyra. Remember her? She was great.
I mean, I hate to piggyback on Leland's Tortle, but Booch is pretty fun. I liked Booch a lot.
I'm looking at my D&D Beyond characters, and I'm trying to remember which ones were home group and which ones were podcasts.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
Honestly, when the majority of the time when we're doing a one-shot is Emily is running it.
Well,
yeah,
that's true.
that's fair.
Yeah, she's run a lot of them.
I just love Pyra. I just want to play her all the time. I really need to, like, next character. Anyway, I had a character that was kind of like her, but she was an air genasi, so it was a little bit more breathy.
I liked your, who was the one that was based on a cartoon?
Oh, Jessie.
Yeah, Jessie was my
She
favorite.
talks like this.
Yes.
Ha,
like
that's
that
so
one.
nice of you, John.
I got Pippi.
Can't say we're, oh, Pippi is worse than Cloaca, never mind. Malik was like this. He was just
Malik
serious,
Grimm.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
He was like McRibbon.
McRibbon, oh boy.
It wasn't McRibbon.
Oh, man.
That's so great. That was the first instance of Jacques and Pam as well. I mean, you build up a pretty good catalog.
You got a
of,
repertoire.
stupid characters when we do one shots over the
I
years.
beg your
Okay.
pardon.
Tell me the difference. Hi, I'm Mia. Hi, I'm Opal. Same picture.
There's a difference.
Same picture.
No. Mia and Opal sound very different in my mind.
Oh, they do sound different. I'm just saying they act very similarly, is all I'm saying. Their compasses.
I think Opal's a little more happy.
Opal and Mia, I would not compare them at all, to be honest. I think they're very different.
When they introduce themselves to new people, I always think of Mia, like, when I'm like, I'm Opal Toggle Sprocket of Toggles Sprocket.
Yeah, but Mia was like...
Freaking Brightwood.
Mia expected respect from her, like, pedigree, whereas Opal's just, like, happy and friendly and outgoing, and, like, seems like she comes from much more humble background.
What's Bryn sound like?
Bryn sounds like I sound.
Yeah. Bryn doesn't make any noise anymore.
Bryn sounds like...
Oh.
Yeah, okay, I get that now. All right, my bad.
Well, if things with Zalmo don't work out, you can always enroll at the Troupe de Loop and become actors. If you really want a new calling.
I don't want to work for anybody like, what's her name?
Oh, you don't like
Giselle.
Giselle? Her work ethic, her passion for it?
Yeah.
Her cigarettes.
All right, we got anything else we want to divulge here for these last episodes? Or are we wrapping it up?
I don't think so. I think just if you haven't checked out World Anvil, listener, do it.
Let's wrap up this AP.
I've been Bill and
John
Rumpke.
and Rumpke. Oh, yes.
Yes. Oh, why do you always think you're Rumpke?
I don't know. I legitimately don't understand why I always get that mixed up.
It's to the point where I mix it up now,
It's
too.
like, I don't think that I'm the character Rumpke. I just, like, want to say the word Rumpke. You know what I mean? Anyway,
I've been Emily and Kylie and say shit all.
I'm Elena. I play Opal.
I've been Bill and Hellcruck.
And I'm Leland Steele.
Happy
adventure.
adventuring.
Happy adventure.
Whatever.
And I blanked out on what she said. Say it again. Come on. The listener will not be able to... Okay.
I literally said there was one time where and that's all I said.
Oh. And he was like, listener, if you haven't checked out World Anvil, do it. With the long pause.
That is what I said. Yeah, you were listening. That's very surprising.
That's the only thing I heard is what I'm saying. I didn't hear her at all.
This has been a Sounds of Steel production.